My name is Lang, and I'd like to start off just by thanking my advisory committee for their selfless dedication to this project. Dr. Stuart Sandin, Dr. Corey Gabriel, and the magical Miss Sophia Carter-Peters. I really could not have done this without you. So the title of this project, one more time, is Watch Your Tone, Influence of Voice on Willingness to Participate in Climate Action, with a case study on coral bleaching. I'd like to start off with some personal reasons as to why this project is important to me. I have found that the CSP program really emphasizes the importance of an interdisciplinary focus. And I'm very lucky to have been able to learn not only about climate science and policy, but also even a little bit about communication and psychology as well. Another passion of mine is the increase access to education. I hope that enforcement of this project is able to help address that issue on a large scale. And as for some bigger applications and motivations of this particular project, one of the inspirations I found to conduct this particular study is the fact that while almost every scientist believes in and knows that climate change not only exists, but is also an anthropogenic issue, fewer than 70% of Americans believe in climate change at all. And that is a deliberate problem. That gap in information is due to a formulation of communication that frames climate change as a polarized issue and makes it sort of a taboo topic. In order to talk about climate change, we need to remember to phrase it as access to natural resources such as clean air, water, food, even protection from storms. But framing this project as just access to these necessities of life is going to definitely inspire education and information. Unfortunately, that's not enough at this point. A solution to climate change requires action. And that's what this project is about. How can we talk about climate change to most effectively inspire climate action? I will be studying two main tones in this project: a more positive, solution-oriented, hope-inspiring tone, contrasted by what is historically relied upon in climate change and the communication thereof as a negative, problem-focused, sort of alarmist approach. Now, in order to study this impact of tone, I chose specifically to discuss coral reefs as an ecosystem, despite the fact that climate change is a global issue. And my focus on coral reefs can be boiled down to three main reasons. First of all, coral reefs are a very visibly affected ecosystem at the hands of climate change. Anyone can see a healthy coral and see compared to a bleached, broken coral and notice the visible differences therein. Because of that visibility, there's a lot of media coverage about coral reefs. And so the basic information that my audience group had going into this study was key to this project. Secondly, coral reefs are an invaluable ecosystem. They provide all sorts of resources, not just to humans, but also to the world as a whole. They are producers of oxygen, of fisheries, of protections from storms, and they provide financial benefits that are highly valuable. Anyone can find reason to protect coral reefs. And finally, coral reefs are a very vulnerable ecosystem. As Alex was talking about indicator species in birds, coral reefs are a sort of indicator species on a global level. This ecosystem is projected to all but go extinct within the next 25 years by NASA. And so that urgency made coral reefs a great case study for studying tone. Tone may seem like a bit of an abstract topic, so I wanted to define it within the bounds of this project specifically for you. It is an aspect of communication that involves narrative delivery characterized by linguistic tools. The linguistic tools which I used in particular in this study revolve mainly around vocal inflection, music, and vernacular. And the specific feelings that I was hoping to elicit in my audience are that of hope or concern, respectively. Tone is proven to have massive impacts on audiences' perception and further action after receiving media. And the way in which we communicate needs to be determined by the author's goal, whether that's to inform and educate a population or, again, perhaps more importantly, to inspire action in the viewers of our communication. So the first thing that I did in order to actually collect data on the impact of tone was I surveyed 200 visitors at Birch Aquarium. And I did so with a survey that I created, which answered two main questions. I broke them down here. You can see this graph on the left represents the first answer that I was searching for. These first 4 questions in the survey are derived from the 6 America's Super Short survey created by Yale University. And this offers a national perspective compared to my 200-person control group data displayed here in white. And that national information is shown with the blue bars here to the right of those white ones. And we can see here that the majority of my population that I surveyed stands as a very alarmed population when it comes to climate change, especially compared to the national average. The average American is much less concerned, significantly less concerned than the group that I was studying here at Birch Aquarium. And this may seem like a very skewed result. However, I think this is imperative to this project in that audiences who are already choosing to engage with climate communication are going to be those who are entering the field at an alarmed or concerned stance. Secondly, I'd like to draw your attention to the right side of this slide. We have a pie chart here showing the answer to my second key question, and perhaps the more important part, definitely for this particular project. It asks about participants' willingness to participate in climate action. Now, this is a sum of 5 different forms of climate action. This is on a personal level, a conversational level, within their community, on the political scale, and also one question asking about their willingness to participate within the next month. You can see here that the largest response group is about 40% in that willing triangle there. And this is the median response available in this survey. So right in the middle is where most people wound up, with fewer than 10% of the population not willing, or you can't even see that 1% sliver of very unwilling participants. And then just about 30% of people were either extremely willing and also very willing to participate. Now try your best to remember those statistics. I know it's a little bit difficult, but they'll have a little bit more context in a minute. First, I need to show you my form of communication. The treatment that I used for this particular study revolves around 2 videos that I created. Visually, they're almost identical, using data collected by the Sandin Lab here at Scripps. This is a form of photogrammetry called large area imaging, which converts pictures of coral reefs, millions of them, into interactive 3D models. However, the videos differ in their audible components. I wrote 2 different scripts, both covering very similar topics of conversation, but in quite different ways. One of them is a more positive tone, and one is a more negative tone. And I'm going to play snippets of each video. I'd like for you to try to guess which video is which as we watch these together.
The extremely slow-growing nature of coral reefs makes them a non-renewable resource. This bleaching event alone decimated 1/3 of this reef system. These sites will never be the same. Large area imaging makes it possible to see, in the rare instance that these reefs do survive, only a select few species of coral can return to these sites.
Okay, and our second video here.
scientists. With large area imaging, we can witness how coral reefs fare in healthy conditions, unsustainable temperatures, and rarely, the recovery that follows. This site, like a third of the whole reef, was bleached beyond what scientists previously believed to be salvageable, due to the slow-growing nature of corals. However, select sites like this one reveal corals recovering and regenerating at incredible rates.
Okay, here's the big reveal. Hopefully we're all on the same page. So a little bit more context when it comes to tone. So I showed 400 more participants, one or the other of these videos. And the results are as follows. So we're going back to those two fundamental questions one more time, starting with stance on climate change. So as you remember from that first bar graph we saw, that white chart, our control group, our baseline data, was already heavily skewed towards alarmed. These people are already well educated on climate change and concerned about the issue at hand. After having watched either one of the two videos, my treatment groups were actually even more alarmed than the concerned group that I originally surveyed. Surprisingly, the negative video had a stronger impact than the positive video, both of which were more powerful than no treatment whatsoever. But the negative video seems to suggest that people are more educated or alarmed about climate change after having watched this, again, alarmist approach. So makes a little bit of sense. So if your goal is to educate your population, then perhaps a negative tone is the more effective solution for that particular goal. However, if you would like to actually inspire change in your population, in your audience, the positive video does have a statistically relevant higher pull towards extremely willing to participate in climate action. And this is actually a compounding result. If you can notice under the not willing part of this graph, there are fewer people who are not willing after having watched the positive video displayed here in pink in the middle of those three bars than there are not willing after having watched the negative video. This is very interesting, and this is really the answer that I was looking for having conducted this experiment. And we can learn that with a positive tone, although it may seem difficult to convey climate change in a lighter event, we can inspire more action towards a solution. As for applications of this particular project, they're pretty far and wide between. First of all, I would love for climate scientists to apply this to their publications, whether they be scientific or op-eds. Educators could absolutely implement this in curriculum they write. Policymakers could use this in their proposals, and environmental organizations could absolutely use a more positive tone in their outreach. But I think maybe the most important takeaway of this project is that activists, or just people in this room who already have some knowledge about climate change, can and should talk about it so that it's no longer this voodoo kind of topic that nobody's allowed to discuss. And doing so in a positive tone, or even if you can do it in a negative tone, you can make a difference and inspire climate action in your family, your friends, or even maybe a complete stranger. And so I want to leave you with one final message. Thank you so much for being here today and participating in climate action yourselves.
Your support in the form of climate action pulls fragile ecosystems like coral reefs from the dangers of climate change and towards a brighter future.
Thank you all.
Hi, Lang. Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you, Brooke.
Why did you choose videos as the form of media you use to communicate?
So I wanted to have a combination of different aspects that I could control very easily. First of all, I was able to utilize visual data that was offered locally as part of the Sandin Lab here at Scripps. Also, I was able to deliberately manipulate a specific tone and replicate it consistently. These videos, if I had been talking to the people that I surveyed, I would have messed up my words, as I'm sure I did in this presentation, and it would have been a little bit different every time. This offered a form of consistency, and it offered a reliable way to measure the impacts of multiple different variables, including music, as I know you all heard that kind of big crescendo in that more positive video, as well as, you know, those three key aspects that I wanted to focus on in language and music again, and just tonality, how we talk about problems like this. Thank you for your question.
Hey, Lang, good job. That was really awesome. I have kind of 3 mini questions for you. So first, I just was curious if you showed them, like, at what part of their aquarium experience did you show this video? Was it in the center of the aquarium? Was it as they were entering or leaving? And then also, was there anyone, did they have to approach you or did you approach them? And kind of how did you gauge their willingness to watch the video? And I guess I'll just leave it at that.
So it's a little bit varied. First of all, I was stationed. I had like a table set up of right near kind of the entrance or exit. I don't know how many of you have been to Birch, but I'm sort of by the door when you walk into the actual building. So some people were coming and some people were leaving. It was a little bit all over the place, but definitely varied. Fewer people were interested in talking to me. There was a lot of rejection when it came to approaching people to participate in this study, as I'm sure you can imagine. But some people were actually very willing to be involved, and that was really heartwarming for me personally. There were a few cases where people's responses after having participated in the study, largely after watching the positive video, people were more willing to ask about ways that they could participate in climate action and asked for specific actions that they could carry out in their day-to-day lives. Whereas after watching the negative video, I didn't have that as much. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I was kind of proud to say that I made a couple of people cry after watching the negative video. I'm sorry to say that on camera, maybe delete that part, but and I'm sorry, what was the last part of your question?
That was it. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you so much.